Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the amended Malibu Planning Commission regular meeting for August 5th, 2019. Kathleen, could we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hill?
Present.
Commissioner Marks?
Here.
Commissioner Mazza?
Here.
Vice Chair Jennings?
Here.
Chair Euring?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Hot dog. All right, guys, ready to go? Vitas, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Vitas, thank you very much. Could I get approval of the agenda?
I move the agenda be approved as staff recommends, with item 5A continued to 8/19, 5B continued to August 19th, 5C continued to a date uncertain, and 5D continued to September 16th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very
Wait,
good.
was there a second? Okay.
Still all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Catherine, report on posting the agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was properly posted on July 26, 2019, with the amended agenda posted on August 1st, 2019.
Thank you very much. Richard, can you give us an update on the Woolsey Fire rebuild process?
Good evening, Commissioners. Let me go through our numbers here for this week. And to let you guys know, we haven't issued any de minimis waivers since the last two that you've seen. We did have an additional application for coastal development permits. That's somebody who essentially is building a whole new home, new footprint, new size. They are not using essentially a fire rebuild rights. We have processed a total of 40 administrative plan review projects. These are projects where folks are either putting back what they had plus 10%, and there is some sort of discretionary approval required. It could be heights above 18 feet or reducing a setback to be consistent with existing setbacks. And in some cases, those are completely new projects too, or new additions beyond. And also working our way down the line towards the larger numbers. The number of temporary housing approvals from the planning department has remained the same, and we've issued a total of 180 planning verification approvals. Now that can be for a whole new home, or that could also be, say, a shed or some smaller structure just being replaced in kind that was destroyed by the fire. A total of 14 building permits have been issued for the reconstruction of homes that were destroyed by the fire. As of last week, that number was 12, and today 2 more were issued. The number of permits that were issued by our Building and Safety Department were 248 for repairs to fire damage. The Planning Department is still offering consultations with our fire rebuild staff. If anyone is interested in those, they can come to City Hall to schedule a time. They can call us in the planning department, or they can email Andrea Cruz. We have her email address up here. There is still the Debris Removal Operations Center open in Calabasas, and we still have a member of the fire department at City Hall on Thursday mornings between 8 and 12. The city staff has been implementing the fee waiver program as approved by the city's city council. And what that applies to are projects that are like-for-like projects or like-for-like plus 10%. Whenever you do something beyond the 10% or a whole new home, like for example, those coastal development permit applications, those fees are not waived. What city staff has been doing, consistent with the direction from the council, is that anyone who applied prior to the waiver program for a project that was like-for-like or like-for-like plus 10% and were charged fees by the city, they can apply for a refund, and we will go through that to issue them a refund. It goes back to whoever paid those fees. And also these fees are for residences only, not commercial properties, and the waiver is only extended to primary residence, one that you actually lived in, not a second home or a rental property. To date, staff has waived $225,000 worth of fees from both the planning department, and these would be also fees from building and safety for plan checks or reviews by the city's geotechnical staff or public works department. We also learned last week that the Los Angeles County Water District is going to be waiving some of the improvement fees and infrastructure fees that they were charging to return service to homes after the fire. For any questions on what is waived by the water districts, Water District 29, it's best to have make contact with the water district. This is not a program that's implemented through the city. This is something that is strictly handled by the Waterworks Department. And in our last update, one of the questions that was asked by the commission about fee waivers were about what fees are not waived in the city. So this goes for any project. There are fees that are taken in for, say, the county or for the state. So specific to fire rebuilds, while we may waive fees for the reconstruction of a primary residence, there are 2 fees for the state that do need to be paid. What those fees are is called the building safety surcharge fee. And what that fee goes towards is it goes to the state and it's used for general building improvement studies as well as education programs. And the idea there is to come up with safer building practices and education. Now those fees roughly run about $1 per $25,000 evaluation, so it's not a very large fee there. The second one of these fees is called the building safety seismic surcharge. What the monies collected from this fee go to seismic improvement programs put on by the state, so looking at new codes and updates, as well as seismic monitoring in the state. So essentially, they're both fees looking at safer building. And that fee, the valuation on it is about 1/1000th of a cent on the value of the building. So if you're looking at $130,000 worth of improvements, you're looking around $130 in fees. It's another one that's a very small percentage. I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Commissioners, questions?
Yes. Richard, when you waive the fees for primary residence, do you, is that houses that have property tax exempt, homeowners exemption on their property tax?
What the city is using is any form of proof that you occupied that residence as of November 8th, so a driver's license or a utility bill. Now folks have given us, I think, a copy of their passport, but that seems to be the data that we're using.
Wouldn't any house have a utility bill?
We're looking for the person's name on that bill.
But wouldn't your second house, wouldn't you pay the utility bill?
I'm not certain that we're using utility bills. A voter registration card is another form of ID, and driver's license with the current address, as Richard mentioned.
Now, would it be possible for you, I don't know if you read the LA Times today, but there's an article about what's getting rebuilt, and I got called by a city councilman. Are you able to tell us in the future, out of the 430 houses, how many were 110% and how many were larger, and what percentage of the maximum TDSF the larger houses were? To get some idea of what's happening with these vacant lots?
Well, the rebuild, not vacant lots necessarily, because,
well,
yes. We can query our database to look at project type. Yes, we can do that. But in terms of giving you specific information regards of size, that's something we'd have to do an additional step on.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could. A year from now, could we find out that 200 houses were built and
That's
40 of them were
information
mansions?
that's information that we can get, yes.
Okay, great.
Because that was sort of the topic of the article today, right? So, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, Richard, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. All right, written and oral communications from the public. Do we have anything? Thank you very much. Mr. Silverstein, you're up. Bruce Silverstein.
Thank you. Good evening. So I realize that the application for SCE or whoever it is that's working for SCE to continue to use the lot across the street as a work yard is continued, but I just wanted to make some comments about that. The fact that it's continued is problematic because it shouldn't be there. And the longer this board, this commission has before it can decide whether it should be there, the longer it's there. So they've given, it's basically there illegally in the first place. Originally, this was a 4-month application. City told them make it 3 because if you make it 3, you don't have to go through coastal. So they made it 3. They never intended for it to be 3. I don't know whether people within the city knew it wasn't going to be 3, but that is the actual factual history. Now, it was supposed to have been it was supposed to be done by May 15th, remediated by June 15th. That's 2 months ago now almost. It will be more than 2 months by the time this commission hears about it for the first time. The lot across this, on the other side of the street also, if I may be wrong, but I believe is covered with gravel that shouldn't be there, which was never applied either, because the city decided after the emergency use by SCE to just let them leave it there. I don't mean the city, you guys of the city. The city staff allowed them to leave it there because it wanted it. No proper process is being followed. Now, I did a books and records, a request for the city for documents, which, by the way, Mr. Rusin called me about, and still have not given me full documentation. They said they were going to get back to me, never did. But one thing I did get, the very last thing that trickled into me was an application by Malibu Presbyterian Church to use this exact same lot that SCE is still currently using after the church burned down for a temporary site. They were told they couldn't do it the way they wanted to because there was ESHA on the site, and there needed to be a new plan before they could go there. So there's ESHA on that site. It's not buried in gravel, but that's where the Presbyterian Church wanted to use it for religious purposes. The city wouldn't let them, at least not as they proposed it. They wanted to put gravel there. SCE's done the business that they needed to do in Malibu. In fact, the first business they did was burn Malibu down. We shouldn't be giving them any accommodation that they're not entitled to. All they want to do is save money by having this work yard here. It's not necessary. On the way here today, I was stuck behind one of their construction vehicles while I was driving to the meeting because we're now getting extra traffic from these construction vehicles that don't need to be here. This isn't even commercial, it's industrial. So I'll be having more to say about this at the meeting where it's actually heard, but I would encourage this commission to press them to get out of there with all alacrity. Thank you.
Bruce, thank you very much. Anybody else would like to speak? If not, we'll close the public comment, bring it back up to the commission. Any commissioner comments? Mr. Hill?
I'll say that I would like to hear more about that and how the timing of that is working, because I was also under the impression that it was more of an emergency and time sensitive, and it has been a while. I'd also like to follow on my previous comment about maybe switching the date to Tuesdays, and as I've thought about that, I realized that while that would have some benefit for me, at least, it occurs to me that really what would help would be to institute some sort of procedure whereby staff reports come in earlier, like by Monday a week before, rather than coming in on Wednesday or Thursday, not just for us and our prep time and being able to get questions back to staff in time, but also for the public, where in a couple cases I've heard from people where they've said, is this going to be on the thing or not? We need to get our neighbors together and to come down. And then, you know, finally we see come midweek that it's continued or something, and it takes a lot for a neighborhood to gear up about something. So it would be good if we could somehow have more certainty earlier. And then finally, I just wanted to flag the comment, and I'm going to bring this up to council at their next meeting, that, you know, we're approaching the fire season now, and there's been some work and talk about getting hardened backup power systems for water pumps in canyons like Big Rock is the one that I'm most familiar with, but I know a number of other canyons have similar setups. And there has been some progress in talking with Waterworks, for example, has signed off on a plan whereby diesel backup generators could be put on next to the pump. So when SCE shuts down the power, the neighborhood still has water to fight fires. Waterworks is on board with that, and Edison is still, I don't want to characterize why they haven't done anything about it yet, but that seems like something that should be pushed, and there's still some remaining window to have something more robust in place by, say, October, when we're going to really be needing it. And hopefully, it seems like for a more permanent solution, that involves pouring concrete pads for generators and things that would need permits, and already is not going to happen by this October. But at least there are some temporary solutions that they have that we could be encouraging them, SCE, to be rolling out more of that. So I just think we all need to lean on that some, because that's going to be potentially a really big deal this October, especially in the East. And that's it.
Mazza?
What would Edison have to do with generators? I mean, to my neighbors, several of my neighbors, the power goes out, boom, their generators start right up and off they go.
Well, I don't want to speak too formally, but I know that in Big Rock, there has been discussion between residents, Waterworks, and SCE about doing these backup generators. And SCE has acknowledged that they have some role in providing this, because if they're going to be shutting off the power for safety, then they have some liability if they're also shutting off our water at the same time. So I think it may be a question of pushing on the liability and getting them to accept that.
If they're accepting liability for that, you would think they'd be anxious to get backup generators in, right? John, anything else? Nope. Commissioner Marks?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to just recognize the tragedy out in El Paso and Dayton, and just a thought. Just be aware. I don't know much about these things, but I hear they tend to happen in kind of clusters. So, be aware of your surroundings. It's just horrible. So that was it.
I agree. Two quick ones, Bonnie. The farmers market went in front of the city council to try and use the chili cook-off for parking. And last week before last, I went down there around 10:30 in the morning to buy some stuff, and the surf must have been up because all of the parking spaces in front of Legacy Park were taken. You couldn't park. There's no place to go there. All right. So what is the speed bump that is stopping the city from letting them use the chili cook-off site? I mean, they've given that site to everybody and their brother who was ever wanted to park cars there. And it seems to me we bend over backwards to help some of these commercial guys. I think it would help them. Just they get the traffic, it'll keep the farmers market vibrant.
So the historic use of that site for temporary parking has been associated with temporary use permits. The farmers market would be a longer-term, recurring, every Sunday use of the site for parking. So that doesn't fit well under temporary use because it would be ongoing. We have been in coordination with the farmers market, with Cornucopia, and advised them about what the process would need to be to begin using that property for parking. The council has given its blessing. The farmers market hasn't taken any of the steps to move that forward. So the ball's really in their court. They need to apply for a CUP amendment to their existing CUP at the county property, because the scope of that CUP addresses where all the uses should go associated with the farmers market, how the parking should work, and all of that stuff. So to move
they have to negotiate that with the county? But does that require them to go back to the county first and get the uses and where they go, and what is that?
Well,
I'm just trying to figure out how big a hurdle this whole thing is going to be.
We've been talking about this since before the fire happened. So the ball's been in their court for a long time. We're standing ready to help them through this process. They need to put in an application, and they haven't done it yet.
Okay. last one, back to my favorite topic, Whole Foods. Earlier you said that this green wall stuff was 18 months to 2 years away being done. What was the start date for that? That's from what date is that being measured?
Well, from when it went in. I mean, it's,
I'm just trying to,
the grow-in period was expressed to be 18 to 24 months.
starting when?
Well, I could say from the date of the certificate of occupancy, or I would say the date of installation.
And the only reason I ask that is because if you look at the conditional use permit, there's pictures in there that define the walls that are supposed to be covered by these vines, okay? And if you drive around, a lot of those vines have not been planted yet. So I'm just wondering, did somebody actually go back and look and make sure that those vines are actually going to be?
There were some adjustments made in where the plantings, the wall, green wall areas were going to be. And so some of the walls initially contemplated for planting were switched to different walls. So that's why there are some areas that were proposed to be planted or have now been relocated to different areas.
Is there a way to get a copy of whatever that readjustment was?
Yeah, we have all the documentation of that.
How do I
can show it to you tomorrow.
Cool, because just make sure we're close. Okay. John? Yes.
Quick one.
Go ahead.
As somebody who's called out some sea level issues, I just wanted to point out that a big iceberg calved off of Greenland, 11 billion tons of ice, and overnight the global sea level rose 0.5 millimeter. So it's happening.
Was that in addition to the historic melt in July? That the calving was an additional event?
I think the rest of the melt. The rest of the melt is relatively negligible. That
No,
maybe the
that was
total July was about 0.5 millimeter.
Yeah, they were each 0.5 millimeter.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
John?
Back to the farmer's market. We've been, as far as I'm concerned, a little loose on TUPs, but for example, the market at Trancas, they have music every Friday for 11
We've
weeks.
advised them that they need to, and I believe they have applied for a CUP amendment to address that.
An amendment, not a TUP.
Well, if they're.
I mean, a CUP amendment takes 6 months?
They applied for it some time ago. I'm not sure what the current status of it is, but it's
So-
been in the door for, I would say, at least 6
But in the
months.
meantime, they're doing it.
I
so what's
don't
the-
know if they're doing it or not.
Well, they
As a-
advertise in the paper and they give you the names of the band. And I assume city staff reads the paper. So what's to stop the farmer's market from doing the same thing?
They don't own the property for starters, but I'm not sure what the holdup is. We've advised them of a process, and we're just waiting for them to work with us to get it going.
Well, going back to what originally happened when we approved that building,
Which building?
the school,
Santa Monica College.
The college.
right?
Yes. No, I'm aware of the history. I know there were statements made by the county about accommodating the farmers market. They're doing that. The city council has agreed to, work with the farmers market to allow the parking on our parcel, but it requires an approval, and if they will come work with us on that, then we'll get it done.
Did the labor exchange do a CUP amendment? I doubt it.
That was supposed to be rolled up in the same application with the farmers market.
So are they on it?
They're,
Do they have to write a CUP for the labor exchange?
They
The labor
need to-
exchange is operating,
yes, and they need to address that also.
but they're
not
operating
in
and the
their-
farmer's market isn't. That's my problem here, is we've got one entity that is home free and the other entity who's right next door to them has to write a CUP.
There are things that need to be tied up there. I can't solve this for you right now.
No, but
I think we got-
okay, all we want to know is, actually, I hope you continue to report on this because we're going to lose the farmer's market. And that's basically the only thing this town has that's consistent, where people meet.
I
meet
can't,
once
I
a year at
can't
the
make
chili
them,
cooking.
I can't make them apply.
I think we got to ask the city council to get more and see if they can't move this thing forward, because I don't disagree. I mean, if you can't park, you can't get attendance. If you don't get attendance.
Well,
it's
if you
not
don't have a
much of market.
CUP, apparently you can't have a labor exchange either.
Okay, Bonnie, any comments from your side?
Just a couple of things. I think probably most people know this already, but last week we said goodbye to Craig George as our Director of the Environmental Sustainability Department and Building Official. He retired on August 1st. We wish him well. There's a recruitment going on right now for that position, and in the meantime, Andrew Sheldon is the acting building official and department head. And then the other thing I was going to mention is that the LCP for the housing elements and the LCP public access map updates those are scheduled for City Council on August 26th.
Okay, thank you. All right, now moving on to the consent calendar. Anybody want to pull anything?
I'll move the consent calendar. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. Moving along, we're on to item 4A. Administrative Plan Review number 17095, variance number 18046, application for construction of a new swimming pool, pool equipment, exterior stairs at an existing single-family residence at 3095 Rambla Pacifica. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Euring and members of the Commission. The project before you this evening is an administrative plan review, or APR, with a variance requested for development on steep slopes. Normally, a review and approval of an APR would fall under the purview of the planning director, and this project would not normally come before the Planning Commission. However, since the application includes a variance request, a decision is rendered by you and this body. The project includes concrete stairs on existing foundations, as well as a 540 square foot swimming pool with concrete skirting that will rest on piles going on slopes steeper than 2.5 to 1. There is a change to the project description as well. The applicant has agreed to the removal of the existing wood stairs that are also on the slope steeper than 2.5 to 1. Those are currently existing and proposed at this point to be removed. That wasn't included in the report or in your packet. The project is at 3095 Rambla Pacifico Street. The existing residence was a fire rebuild from 1993, and there has already been a variance approved for the rebuild of that house for a 50% reduction of the front yard setback and an SPR for construction in excess of 18 feet in height. As you can see from the site plan, the pool is proposed to be connected to the residence via an existing walkway, and 3 new sets of stairs would connect the street level of the house to the existing walkway as well as the pool, and then a 3rd set of stairs would connect the lower deck, the pool, and provide access for firefighters from the slope. Another correction to the staff report is that the lowest level set of stairs would not actually touch the slope or the ground. It would be suspended above the ground and would again provide fire access. You can see here that the pool skirting there would be skirting around the pool proposed, but at no point would the skirting retain any earth at all. It's just skirting to hide the proposed piles. There is a mapped wetland on the on the subject property. The proposed pool is approximately 40 feet from the mapped ESHA, the buffer around this mapped wetland, but much further from the wetland itself. The proposed pool and the stairs would not increase the development area of the site. It is kind of notched into the existing residence, and per the city biologist, wouldn't impact the ESHA or mapped wetland really in any way. You can see from site photos here the existing concrete walkway. The pool would extend kind of down the hill from the walkway that you see in the left-hand photo and the right-hand photo, and then the stairs would be connecting the very far end of the residence down to the existing walkway, this upper deck that you see here to the existing walkway, and then, as I said, to the slope, but not on the slope below. You can see a different angle here, including both levels of decks on the right-hand side. And then the stairs that are proposed to, at this point, be removed are included in these photos. They're wood stairs, and the resolution would be revised to include a condition requiring the removal of these stairs. There are 9 pools of the 18 residences within 500 feet of the subject property. 9 of them have pools. Approval of the variance would grant relief from a technical development standard, which, if strictly applied, would prohibit the applicant from enjoying a privilege enjoyed by owners of surrounding properties, including 9 of the 18 residences in the surrounding area. In conclusion, staff believes that the required findings for this project can be made. With the inclusion of the variance request, the project does comply with the MMC, and staff recommends approval of the project subject to the additional condition requiring the removal of those wood stairs. I am available for questions, as is the applicant.
Justine, thank you very much. Any disclosures?
Yeah, I visited the site with Vitas. We talked about some of the engineering and how the pool would not add significant stress on the existing foundation, and I asked that hopefully we can characterize that in more detail. And also, we talked some about drainage of the pool and where that would go, and I can talk some more about that when we get to it.
Could you go back to the picture of the stairs going down the side of the hill? There, that one. Those look like railroad ties, which are about 1 by 1. So that indicates that slope is 1 by 1. We already did disclosure, didn't we?
Yeah, we're just doing
Disclosure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have any disclosure?
No.
No disclosures here.
No, I did not visit this site, but I wish I would have. No, go ahead, John. John?
We all done?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just wondering, if you, those look like they're 1 by 1 and they're stacked right next to each other. So is that not a 1-for-1 slope?
That's what triggered the variance. Because
Can you get a variance for a 1-for-1 slope?
anything steeper than 3 to 1 is a variance slope.
So you could do
Or,
it.
like,
I
is
thought
that right?
1-for-1 you
2.5
could
to
get a
1.
variance.
Pardon?
You can get a variance for 1-for-1.
Yes.
Okay, and then I didn't see any mention of the hillside ordinance. Is it confirmed that you can't see this from a public street?
The hillside ordinance doesn't apply in this case because it's a proposed project for a pool.
What does the pool have to do with?
The hillside ordinance doesn't apply when proposing a pool to an existing residence.
It's a
It
specific.
says nothing can be more than 35 feet going up
But
a
a pool,
slope.
it was a specific carve out, if I remember correctly, from hillside standards, actually, that swimming pools not be considered.
How about a 13-foot wall?
It says swimming pools.
Okay, then my next question is on the 13-foot wall. The only reason they're allowed to do that is because there's no dirt behind it? If there was dirt behind it, you would not be allowed to do that? Is that correct?
It's a wall outside of the setbacks, so it's allowed to be higher than a normal wall, and it's not a retaining wall, so it doesn't fall under that 6-foot limit for retaining walls. It may
Okay.
be a loophole, but that's what we have today.
Okay, it actually says in the hillside ordinance, pools don't count, huh? Okay.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Hill, could you explain what you learned about the draining before we open the public hearing?
Yeah, I'm still confused. I thought we were just doing disclosures now, but we're finished. Okay. I learned that it would functionally, you'd have to require that you have a truck come in to pump it out if you wanted to drain it for any reason. That there's no facility there logistically to just drain it down because it's a blue line stream below. So that should probably be a condition that we put in the application.
I think it is. It's actually a standard condition for
Is it
swimming
there?
pools. Yeah, there's a lot of, let's see, if you look at condition number 20,
Unless it's, if it's chlorinated, it has to be pumped.
Public Works adds that standard condition to any swimming pool application that we have. If that addresses what you're asking.
And if it drained down the hill, it would hit the MS4?
Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Hill? Commissioner Marks?
Yeah, one more question, Justine. With the change for removing the stairs, it looks like they go pretty far way down the hill. Does that change any conditions for, kind of construction required to remove that, what have you? And will it be removed all the way to the the full extent?
Yes, the stairs will be completely removed to their full extent. I'm not aware of any other conditions that would be required for the removal of those stairs.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one. Justine, on the resolution on page 3, item 3, it talks about the fact that there are 9 properties within a 500-foot radius that have a pool. And we're using that as justification to sort of suggest, are those pools also built on the same slope?
Truthfully, I didn't look at the slope of all of the properties. I don't believe that all of them are on steep slopes. I'd have to look into that. Some other properties in the area are also on or near steep slopes, so they could be, but I'd have to check.
Yeah, just when I read this, if we're using that as a reason to approve it, it seems to me that we should have apples to apples. Instead, there's a pool, and they all got pools, and they're all built on the same slope. Otherwise, we're doing sort of half a apple, I guess, for lack of a better word, huh?
I actually had the same question when I was reviewing the findings, and I took a look at the aerial maps for the area, and it looks like my assessment is that although it looks like many of those homes that have the pools are built on hillsides, but that the pad was extended out where the hill used to be so it is a comparable kind of a thing. The the finished product is a little different, but there was a hill there and now there's a pool there.
Good catch. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. In addition to wanting some more detail on how this interacts structurally with the existing foundation, and I think Vitas may speak to that. I don't know, that may be something you can answer, but sort of related to that, in email, he mentioned to me that the equipment pad to the side, I was wondering how that was actually accessed and supported, and he said it's cantilevered off the proposed pool foundation, so it doesn't depend on the nearby slope for any support. So that's all I know about that. It would be nice to get some further clarification about how that equipment pad actually works and is accessed and interacts with the rest of it. Maybe that's something that Vitas will address in his.
Let's open a public hearing. Vitas?
Good evening, Commissioners.
For us. Evening.
Well, I can address the question straight off. The pool is on its own foundation and not interfering with the support of the house in any way. The house is on piles up to 60 feet deep, and the pool will be on something on the order of 40-foot piles, independent of the house foundation. There are 3 short sets of concrete steps. These are not steps that lead down the yard or anywhere else off-site. One of them is from the side of the garage, from the parking down to the pool area. It's the way pool service would get in. It's the way firefighters would get in. These are 5 feet wide, and they're going to be cantilevered off the existing house foundation. Then there's a walkway that's already existing, cantilevered off the existing house foundation, and there'll be steps that lead up to the house deck. That second set of stairs is there to provide access to the pool from the house. Otherwise, they'd have to walk around the building. And there's the third set of mystery steps down below that I wish had been there in 2007 because I was the only person there with my father-in-law fighting the fire, and we did that for 2 days. And, you know, it was pretty tough. Underneath that building, everything got burned off of that slope. And to have had those steps there would have made things a lot easier for us. So those steps really are for firefighting purposes, not for any sort of maintenance or other purpose. They do not contact the slope directly. They would be cantilevered off the existing house, not off the new pool. And they provide just access to get underneath the house, underneath that cantilevered deck for maintenance, but mostly in the event of a fire, you need to be able to get into there. Furthermore, those steps that you see going down the hill, they are railroad ties. They were installed after the 2007 fire. A peculiar drainage pattern emerged after all the brush and trees and everything were burned, and it caused a rut in the middle of that hill that came pretty close to causing a slope failure. So I put those railroad ties in, or had those railroad ties put in, not as stairs, but to capture the silt. It's a riprap device, and it's no longer necessary. So those will be removed in their entirety and disposed off-site. They will be removed when we go in with the equipment to drill these piles. That'll be the perfect time to have those all yanked out. The slope looks a lot better today than it did in December of 2007.
We still got,
I'll close it. We got.
I closed the public hearing, you can ask them questions. Yes.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
This is just, when you look at that picture and where the house is, how do you get a drilling rig that can drill a 60-foot hole, 40-foot, whatever, on that slope?
There is still a crib path that's on this property that starts behind the propane tank and allows us to drive a short rig out to that location. It'd be the same rig that we used the first time around.
Interesting. I wouldn't want to be in it.
It's hand cribbed, and we walk that machine out with a remote control. It's Bub's machine from Roy Brothers. It works really, really well.
Any other questions, guys?
Nope.
Can I get a motion?
I have a regular question. I thought we were going to discussion. When looking at your plans, I just want to confirm kind of the east side of the property. It looks like your waste treatment is at that end, kind of in that kind of pad area. There's no way to squeeze a pool in there, just to ask the obvious?
That side is actually steeper. When we first, I've been familiar with this house for a very long time. It was originally Ron Goldman designed for the Franke family. And I designed the house that's there today for my father in '99. And we did a lot of test borings. And where the driveway and this garage and the pool are, the bedrock is very tight and very strong, and you don't have to drill as deep. Unfortunately, it doesn't perk. At the far end of the property, the east end, it's shattered rock and it perks like a son of a gun. That was the perfect place to put the septic, not a good place to put a swimming pool.
Got it. And then it's even steeper, the face.
It's even steeper. That's a 1-to-1 on the other side.
Even more. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I move staff's recommendation with the addition of the provision to remove the stairs.
Require the removal of the wooden stairs?
Correct.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, moving along. Thank you, Vitas. 4B. Coastal Development Permit number 18004, Site Plan Review 1802032, an application to amend Coastal Development Permit number 16029 to construct a new single-family residence and associated development. And this was continued from June 15th for 31479 PCH. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Coastal Development Permit Amendment for 31479 PCH, and it includes a site plan review for construction in excess of 18 feet. The property is located on the north side of PCH in the rural residential 5-acre zoning district and is approximately 5 acres in size. A brief history on the project, or the property. Prior to the incorporation of the city, the property was developed with a nursery and a tree farm. During that time, the northern portion of the property was terraced to accommodate an orchard. An orchard was also planted on the flat pad on the southern end of the property. Additional development associated with the nursery included the existing single-family residence and detached restroom and a 2,800 square foot conference room. Approvals were granted to the property in 2001 and 2007 by the city in the form of a plot plan review and CDP. Both approvals were for the new single-family residence and on the same development pad as the proposed development. Both approvals later expired. The conference room was later removed. It was demolished in 2010. In 2011, the city approved an administrative plan review for an addition to the existing single-family residence, a gazebo, garden stairs, and expanded agricultural use. In 2013, the Planning Commission approved a swimming pool and an advanced wastewater septic system. In 2017, the Planning Commission approved a new single-family residence of the same size and in the same location as the amended single-family residence. That approval is still active. The owner, however, wishes to make significant changes to the architectural design of the residence, and these changes go beyond the scope of the planning director's authority to approve under substantial conformance. The project before you tonight consists of the removal of the existing leach fields and septic tank and construction of a new 9,746 square foot, two-story single-family residence, fire department turnaround, 640 cubic yards of non-exempt grading, retaining walls that do not exceed 6 feet in height, roof-mounted solar panels, decks, and a new on-site wastewater treatment system. The project also consists of a site plan review for construction up to 24 feet with a flat roof. Approvals were previously granted for the 9,746 square foot, two-story single-family residence proposed with a 28-foot tall pitched roof. That approval also included a variance for encroachments into ESHA. As that CDP is still active and the proposed single-family residence is located on the same development pad as what was previously approved, a new variance for ESHA encroachments is not required. The residence is proposed at 24 feet with a flat roof, and the red line at the top elevation shows the approximate 18-foot line. The elevation at the bottom shows the previously approved 28-foot tall residence shown in red. Story poles were erected in June of 2019. The photograph at the top shows the views of the proposed structure from PCH. The photograph also shows the location of the neighboring property to the northwest. The photograph to the bottom right shows the potential views from that neighbor over the proposed roof line. Since the installation of the story poles, staff has not received any correspondence regarding the project. Properties in the vicinity of the subject property are diverse in size. Several to the east have been divided into smaller 1-acre parcels with single-family residences consisting of roughly 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. According to the LA County Assessor data, the property to the immediate east of the subject property is developed with an 11,182 square foot single-family residence. The two lots to the immediate west previously received approvals for a lot merger and a 10,457 square foot residence. And the vacant property to the west of that was previously constructed with an 11,232 square foot single-family residence. Staff utilized this data in addition to the visual data collected during site visits to complete this analysis. In summary, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 1937, approving the project as conditioned, and this concludes my presentation, and the applicant and staff are available for questions.
Jessica, thank you very much. Disclosures, please.
I visited the site. I learned that a substantial portion, maybe a majority of the 5+ acres is development area already. There's lots of impermeable coverage and asphalt driveways around the whole property. Also checked, confirmed on the ESHA map that the adjacent stream is a blue line stream, which hadn't been apparent to me previously. That's it.
Commissioner Mazza.
Nothing.
Commissioner Marks.
Visited the property, didn't learn anything new.
I visited the property the first time it came before us and got a perspective, did not go back out to it this time. So with that, let's open the public hearing. We've got.
Do we want any questions? of staff?
Questions of staff first. Anybody?
Quick
Or you wanna go to public
question,
hearing?
if you can go back one slide. In this one to the west, are those two buildings built or they're approved?
Are you speaking about the blue ones or the green ones?
Blue and green, yeah.
The blue, they were approved for a lot merger and the development of the 10,457 square foot house, but they have not constructed it. The green one, I believe it was constructed a long time ago, but it's since been removed. There's some foundation still left there, but not much of anything.
You know what? I think I recall that neither of those were constructed. I think the foundations on the green one might have been from some previous development that was unpermitted years ago.
So in terms of the current state of those three, or highlighted 4 lots, including the subject, the red one is built, the other 2 either have or had approval or but
They
aren't
were
currently there.
approved, but they don't currently exist today.
Okay, thank you.
And the development permits are still viable or still open?
I'd be surprised if they were. It's been a long time.
That's what I thought, okay. John?
My only question is, the CDP they're working under now have permeable fencing?
The previous CDP had proposed permeable fencing. This one didn't propose anything new from that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that open the public hearing, and then
I have
we get
questions
questions?
instead,
Go ahead.
yeah. It wasn't clear to me, I emailed and asked about a lot of the development area, the asphalt and so forth, and when I was on site, I didn't make a point of noticing how much of the pavers were permeable and how much might be impermeable. But I have a sense that maybe some of the areas were concreted into. But anyway, the question is, I wanted to know about the development area, and you suggested that that occurred on the property prior to the current owner purchasing the property, implying that that wasn't relevant. But it seems to me that if there's existing area that's already developed, that's part of what we should be looking at, right?
In order to comply with the 10,000 square foot development, this one had to stay within what was previously approved with the CDP, the previous CDP. That one is still active. And in order to do that, both of them require the removal of the single family residence and the detached guest room, in addition to some of the other development, including impermeable concrete that's all located in the lower southwestern corner. So essentially what they're doing is just moving that development pad to the center of the lot.
So all the asphalt driveways, we'll call them, that run around the property, that's development area, and it's not an access driveway. It's just sort of like, you know, if I had a 5 acre lot, I could just put asphalt over the whole thing. We're getting towards that already, and so that we don't count that now as development area?
The majority of the asphalt and concrete were for the main driveway, and what's proposed also is the fire department turnaround. And neither one of those are included in the
Right.
calculation for a 10,000 square foot development envelope.
So we would maybe have to condition that the remainder of all the asphalt that doesn't serve that access purpose would have to be torn up and restored to some kind of habitat or something at least permeable?
The majority of the other areas, there's concrete pavers and flagstone pavers throughout the lot. There's also DG paths and stuff that are permeable.
Permeable areas, but there's a lot of asphalt that's not access driveway, that's just like utility driveway that winds up around the property. Is that we don't count that, I'm hearing, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Are you
Is that
asking if it's total development square footage?
No, not for the house. It's if you're in or near Esha, you get 10,000 square feet versus the 2 acres you get when you're not in Esha. Yeah.
But
Are
isn't
the
the question,
other driveways
is your question,
having
what,
to be removed?
I believe they're permeable.
what's the total impermeable square footage?
It seems like it's like an acre or 2.
And was,
Do you recall where this extra asphalt was located on the site?
It winds around there. It goes up beyond the house on the east side and all along, on the west side and all along up the east side near the edge of the fence above
that
the.
road you see? That goes up to the top?
It's, yeah, you can see the bit up to the top.
You want to use the laser pointer?
Laser pointer. Yeah, and the photo we're looking at now is a little misleading in that I don't think it shows a lot of the impermeable coverage that's, the pavers and everything. How do I get this on?
There's a button on the side.
There it is, okay. So all along this side, there's a driveway that runs from the bottom and up and around, and there's a driveway that runs all up this side. None of these are relevant to getting access to the house. It all goes up here. So, I mean, most of the site is already covered with either asphalt or the pavers, and I understand the pavers are permeable, and maybe we don't count those as development area, but there's still a substantial amount of asphalt.
The photograph, the aerial is from 2015. It was the most recent that we had. And to answer your question, Commissioner Mazza, about the impermeable coverage, they're allowed 25,000 square feet, and they're proposing 20,676 square feet. A good portion of that is for the main access driveway and fire department turnaround.
So the question would be,
What part of this?
was this stuff he's talking about included in that 20,000?
I believe it was, but we can question the applicant as well.
Okay.
Well, I guess my observation is that I don't see how it could be, because half of that 20,000 is already just the house itself. And it seems like there's probably at least an acre of asphalt on the site that's not for access, all told.
It's a two-story house, so it's not 9,000 square feet as a footprint.
But we've got the pool and everything too.
Pools don't count, believe it or
Pools
not.
don't count, that's right, okay.
Dan, you want to open the public hearing?
Well, I guess and just to be clear, we are talking about the 10,000 square foot area, not the 2 acre, because we're that close to ESHA, right? It's not, doesn't have to be in ESHA, it just has to be adjacent to it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, with that, let me open the public hearing. We've got one speaker. Arshia, and if I screwed that up, I apologize. And if you give us your name, when you start, you do have 15 minutes.
Good evening. This is Arshia Mahmoudi, architect of the project.
I was close to the first name, huh? Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have much to add, but I just wanted to basically mention in general that the new proposal is we tried to make it relatively smaller than what was previously permitted under the previous approval. We removed the basement as far as significantly reducing the excavation and grading. And the massing is also relatively smaller because we're at a lower height. And I believe as far as the question that came up about the impervious areas, maybe we can, if you know, we can put a language that it limits to the number that's here, that they can verify on during construction. If that's okay.
And for all impermeable, you'd be open to saying that total, including historical and new development, would be subject to the limit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Chair Euring, in the resolution from the CDP that we're amending, it's one of the attachments in your packet. I don't know the number. Probably attachment 2. Condition 55 references the 10,000 square foot development area requirement, and that all the existing residence, detached restroom, and other structures outside of the 10,000 square foot development area shall be removed. So that would include any of that asphalt that's outside of what would be counted as the allowed development area.
Which item is that? Which condition is that?
55 in the resolution 17-62.
Got it.
So I think that would address your concern.
So that would be removed and replaced with landscaping or native restoration, or what do you put in place of it?
They would just need to make sure that it's not in a state that would erode or whatever, so that would probably be like a native planting mix or something like that.
Does it cover it?
I mean, existing resident and other structures outside the 10,000 square foot development area with a fixed location shall be removed.
What else?
That says structures. Does that include the?
No, well then we,
That would include a driveway.
That would include, the structures include driveway? Okay, I wouldn't have thought that, but okay.
I would, what number is that?
This is item, it's on page, here.
16 or 20?
55.
You can specify as well if you want to.
Yeah, we may want to.
Okay, I'd like to move staff's recommendation and change 55 to include impermeable.
That's in the, we can't, that's in the prior resolution,
Well,
right?
since you're amending that, if you wanted to
We
add
can
that
just
as
add
You'd
it
say
there. Okay,
amend
cool.
conditions.
Yeah, I just want to include all impermeable surfaces instead of just buildings.
Right.
Structures, to make structures clear.
I have,
So
I have additional question.
Your change would be to say structures including impermeable surfaces.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
That's his motion, but you, Craig, you got one for you want to?
Yeah, on the archaeology, we have the archaeology area there. And I guess I'd be interested in knowing what was found there and why we would have any reason to believe it's confined solely to that area, and leading towards the possibility that this might merit having a professional archaeologist on site during any excavation. Can we characterize what was going on there and what prospect there might be that further?
A lot of the cultural resources, the reports and stuff are not public record. We try to keep that information quiet, just for respect out of the property owners, so people aren't going up there trying to dig around. You're welcome to come in and look at that if you need to. They've done 2 different archaeology reports, and both of them came up with the same thing, with the same sensitive area, and the recommendation from the archaeologist was to just provide a 25-foot buffer around the area.
Suggesting that they don't think that there would be anything under where any excavation would be occurring now.
That's what it suggests, yes.
Right?
Yeah, we approved a basement already. So so all they're going to excavate is their foundation.
Right.
Which is where the basement
Which is
would
why I wondered what was there and whether, if there's something there, could it be across the whole site? And I guess we don't know that.
Unless I missed it, I'm going to second John's motion.
Okay, John's motion was to approve the staff report and to add the condition regarding removing the asphalt, okay, outside the 10,000 square foot area.
It was to approve staff's recommendation, and then for condition 55 to add, when it says structures, including impermeable surfaces after structures in
And just
condition 55.
one quick question on that same item 55. It looked like there are some structures kind of more to the north, probably from when it was an orchard. Those would all be subject to that removal statement, I assume.
There's a few different lean-tos. There's some benches and a couple little seating areas, but nothing that really has any kind of permanent foundation. There's a gazebo at the top that was previously approved, I believe, under the APR that I mentioned. That's the only structure that I can think of. It's not a habitable structure, but that's the only thing that has, solid roof and 4 walls.
Okay, so then technically, as far as that reading goes, that structure would have to be removed, but is it to the applicant's discretion whether to remove something uninhabitable?
This would require anything with a fixed location on the ground has to be removed that's outside the 10,000 square foot development area. That's what
Well, it would need a foundation, otherwise it's a shed, and you just get a shed permit, which I assume is grandfathered in this case.
I'm kind of good either way. With the word structure, and then if you have a lean-to or a gazebo, what's the applicant to do with those? Do they stay or do they go? Is it his call?
It just says structures with a fixed location on the ground, so required to be a structure and with a fixed location on the ground.
So gazebo would be, you'd have to remove, but a lean-to you could keep. Sounds like it. I mean, just because this
The
statement,
gazebo has no walls.
it's got a foundation.
No.
For the way this reads. I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up, because this statement, I don't think is going to give clear guidance to the applicant what to
Right.
do with this.
Can you call him up and have him
The
answer?
fixed location on the ground is related to the definition of structure. So if
This guy
the
wants to
gazebo has a foundation and it's fixed to the ground, then it would fall under this.
Okay. We may get one other, you got to give us your name, sir, and fill out a speaker slip when you're done.
Respectfully, I'm Brett Mandela, construction manager for the potential project. The gazebo is really just it's as close to a tilt-up or a lean-up as it could be. It is on a permeable base, still the flagstone with crushed gravel in between to allow for permeability. And it is not a solid roof, it is a hatch roof. So it's as close to a non-permanent structure as it could be. There's no foundation, there's nothing there. So we would ideally like to keep that structure.
Thanks, sir.
But it's meant to go with the, with the environment there.
And the
It's not
language
a
would
solid
allow it.
structure.
The language would allow that.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And
great.
fill out a speaker slip if you would, please, sir, just so we are on record.
I'm sorry, Brent Mandel.
There's a little speaker slip. I don't know if Kathleen, she can give you one. Just keep us all
Okay,
on, we got a motion and a second.
call the
I
question.
still have a question.
You got a question, go ahead.
Just to clarify, and this may be for Bonnie, so if we're removing the impermeable stuff, is it beyond 100 feet from the house that automatically gets natives planted there, or is there some discretion there, or is that an order that we'd have to include in the resolution, or what?
Well,
If we're removing this stuff, how do we know what's going to go in its place?
let's see.
Do we have to?
Something's going to grow there, or impermeable, can they just put more impermeable pavers?
It's not a
or,
landscaping plan, right?
Right, there is a landscaping plan, and typically there are,
Given that we're near an ESHA, it might be nice to be able to condition, if necessary, that beyond a certain distance, that they actually replant some natives.
there are conditions about, condition 57 in that previous resolution talks about habitat mitigation that's for the fuel mod encroachment, I believe, though.
Maybe this gentleman, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Give us your name, please.
Mike Parsi. I am the applicant. All of that asphalt will be removed. We are close to ESHA, but also because the location is very small, we don't have much room. So a lot of that stuff, that area is going to be dedicated to the fire department and their requirements. So it's not like if you go 100 or 200 feet, we have to comply with the fire department requirements in that area.
Yeah, and Bonnie, it's standard requirement that you can't plant non-natives over 50 feet, right, from a house?
Right, you could
Yes.
include a condition about using a native seed mix to stabilize the areas where, or something similar to stabilize the areas where the asphalt is removed.
Do you want to do that?
I'm not the expert in this. I'm just
Well, would
raising it as an issue and saying.
If you-
Would you like to,
If
would
you
you
don't
like
raise
to
it, it'd just
amend
be by code.
the motion?
I think,
Yeah, that would be by code.
you know, my proposal was to remove the prior plan didn't address any of that. So my proposal in this one has substantially less grading because the other one had underground parking. So this one respects the place a lot more. Plus, any of the asphalt that we are proposing to remove this time versus the last time, I was just going to put permeable, basically road there because we have a small tractor and golf cart and all of that need to go around the property. So it was just remove the asphalt and turn it into a permeable road.
Bonnie, if we don't put anything in here by code, he has to use native plants if he plants, correct, over 50
Right.
feet? Okay, so that pretty much takes care of it. He either puts his his gravel in, or if he plants, he's got to use non-natives. Or natives.
Natives.
You okay? Yeah. All right.
Okay.
We still have a motion and a second.
Let's move the question.
Kathleen, can you get a roll call?
Commissioner Mazza,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jennings, Commissioner Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks,
Hi.
Chair Euring,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right.
I
motion
move we
to
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're out of here. Thank you,
Second,
guys.
too.
Cool.